ANC Sports presents a Frick Media Productions, created by the founder and editor at the ANC Network, Sam Frick. This is the opening drive. Welcome to episode 9 of the opening drive. My name is Sam Frick. I'm the founder and editor at ANC Sports, covering schools across Northeast Indiana, Elkhart County, and to the good folks down in Marion, Indiana, of 65 schools across all the ANC Sports coverage. And so we are into the transition phase of the year. Fall season is essentially over, except for football. Volleyball just crowned their state champions. We will get to our next volleyball episode, which is going to give us an overview of the season, of the girls' volleyball season, recapping the rest of the state playoffs, talk about Dwayne making the run to state, Carroll winning the state championship once again. We'll get to that in our next volleyball episode. So we'll take care of that from there. Also, if you haven't noticed, we do have another show that covers basketball called Courtside Ballers. We'll have a new show posted hopefully tomorrow night as I get things wrapped up for that portion of our ANC Sports Network of podcasts. And I know you're going to be asking me, well, what's going on with the ANC Sports Podcast, the regular ANC Sports Podcast? Well, as far as there has been a lot of changes going on with me, career, whatnot, and there have been some in my office, which is my house. Essentially, we've been going through some work around the house over the past few days or so, and so Sundays have been a little bit harder for me to get shows in because of that, and because of the changes I made with ANC Sports as a whole. It's also changed the way I've approached the ANC Sports Podcast. So hopefully, and my hope is that on Sunday, this coming Sunday, I'll have a show, a mini-sized version of the ANC Sports Podcast to kind of give us a brief recap of the fall season and looking ahead to what's to come for those kids in the future and whatnot. And maybe we'll try to get an interview in for some of those teams and whatnot that have achieved a lot this year, particularly with Blackhawk Christian boys soccer winning their first ever state championship. Would like to get that in the future. We're working on that as we speak. We're looking at trying to get some other interviews across the other fall sports that we just haven't been able to talk about because of the scheduling conflicts that have occurred with the past few months or so from a career level, but also from a personal level as well. But I can get to all that in a later time and date. But let's get into football because that's why we're here. We're talking about the recapping of the football sectionals and then looking ahead to regionals coming up on Friday. Just an FYI, you will see my interview with the head football coach of the Angola Hornets, Andy Thomas, as his team continues their, do you want to call it a Cinderella run? I don't know if you want to call it a Cinderella run, but it's definitely on its to regionals coming up on Friday when they travel out west to Knott's to face the Redskins and Miles McLaughlin. We'll talk about Angola in a matter of moments, but we need to go ahead and first shift gears to what is going on right now in the football landscape of the area. And when you look at our regional pairings right now, as you can see, Carroll in 6A, they advanced. In 5A, Concord advanced. It's 4A, you got Bishop Luers advancing in 4A. 3A, you got two area teams advancing in Angola and Bishop Luers. 2A, you have two ANC area teams clashing each other in Eastbrook and Adams Central. So we're guaranteeing at least one ANC area team playing next week, no matter who wins that game. And then Class 1A, you have South Adams traveling to Miami County to face the North Miami Warriors. We'll talk about each of these games. But let's go ahead and dive into class. Let's start with 1A. We talked about 6A first last time. Let's go ahead and just go to 1A first. This particular South Adams Starfires, 9-3 in the season. This is a team that kind of was a little overlooked in the ACAC because of the success of the Bluffton Tigers and the obvious success of Adams Central winning their fifth straight ACAC championship. But quietly, the South Adams Starfires have had a nice year of their own, averaging 38.6 points per game, giving them only 20 points. They dominated the sectional for the most part. Massey Grant was a little bit of a challenge in that game. The early parts of try were a little bit unideal early on until they finally broke open in that game in the second quarter. And then the Hagerstown game, that was not really a contest for South Adams whatsoever. And so South Adams, once again, repeating as Central champions. It's the first time they've repeated since 2021. That was a good run with South Adams when they had the state team in 2020 that nearly won the whole thing before losing to Clinton Christian in the 1A state finals. They had a special team that year. And you look at this year's team, there's some similarities to the team in 2020. Anyway, let's go ahead and just kind of recap the sectional championship game against Hagerstown. Once again, another dominant performance from the South Adams air raid attack. Titus Lehman, 18 of 29 completions for 369 yards, 6 touchdown passes for him. You had Will Patterson with 39 rushing yards on 5 carries. Derek McCain, 8 catches for 175 yards. And the West Somerset, probably a big moment for him, 4 catches for 119 yards. He became the program's career receiving yards leader, which was sad. I'm pretty sure it was around the time they went to state in 2020. And so he breaks that record for all-time receiving yards at South Adams history. He also had 2 touchdown catches in the win over the Hagerstown Tigers, which sets up the matchup against the North Miami Warriors, a team that primarily runs the football. I'm pretty sure they run a double wing formation at North Miami. The Warriors, North Miami just absolutely steamrolled Fremont in the sectional championship game. It was only a 12-7 game at one point. I'm pretty sure it was in the second quarter, but then North Miami pulled away and taking a 26-7 lead at halftime, and they absolutely just kept Fremont off the board the rest of the way. And if you look at Fremont's stats, I'm pretty sure they were held. I mean, Jared Laughlin was held to just 20 yards passing. He only had 96 yards rushing 1 week after rushing for 244 yards against the Triton Trojans. So North Miami really keyed in on Jared Laughlin in that championship game, and North Miami doing what North Miami does best, and that's pound the rock and just completely just crushing the Fremont defense and then just giving no life in the offense whatsoever. And so North Miami and Fremont clash once again for the second year in a row. This time it is at North Miami. Last year, I'm pretty sure it was I am very certain it was at South Adams last season. This time it is at North Miami. South Adams won their previous meeting 40-21, which, think about it, was only a one-score game at the half between North Miami and South Adams before the Starfires pulled away and went 40-21 in that contest. Lehman had 21 of 31 passing for 282 yards, 3 TDs, 1 pick for him. Will Patterson had a monster game as a sophomore against North Miami, 115 rushing yards on 10 carries. He had 2 touchdowns on the ground, and then there was an even passing game with then senior Caden Newman-Schwander, who's now graduated. You had Somerset as a sophomore, 83 receiving yards and 6 catches. Those two definitely had strong games for the South Adams Starfires. Somerset with 2 touchdown catches of his own. So it was a nice balanced offense all around for the Starfires. And then you look at the defensive side, you had a then junior who's now a senior, Gavin Litweiler. He had 9 tackles for him. You had a then senior Ethan Schwartz who had 7. You got a junior who's now a senior, Emmanuel Juarez, with 7 tackles. Again, this is from last season. And then junior Nathan Plattner was 17. He's now a senior, so he's back for this year's contest. And then senior in Luke Bauman with 10 tackles, right? So you look at this matchup coming in. Obviously, the Starfires, they're going to have to make sure they can stop the run of North Miami. And that's not easy to do so because they are very athletic for a team, for a 1A school. North Miami's got a pretty good line up front. They're a very athletic team. And when you look at North Miami's history, they've had a history of success in the past at North Miami. You go back to North Miami's history. They won the state championship about 32 years ago, if I remember right. I believe that was 1993. They won that state championship for North Miami. Yeah, they won a state championship in 93. They won a regional in 1994. And here's the thing. They have not won a regional championship since 1994. So it's been a little bit for North Miami since they have last made it past the regional round. You look at South Adams. In their history, they've won 4 regional championships at South Adams. They have never repeated as regional champions, ironically, in its history. So there's going to be some history being made no matter how you slice it here in this contest. But obviously for South Adams, they're going to have to make sure they can stop the run. That is going to be key here. The other thing for South Adams is they're going to have to make sure they can play clean football. And so far up to this point, they've been mostly playing football really up to this point of the season. They haven't made too many mistakes that have been really costly or put the game in jeopardy, if you would. But I think for South Adams here, got to play clean football. You got to control the line of scrimmage. Got to limit North Miami's drives, if you would. Get them to 3-and-out drives. Got to limit their offensive explosive run attack. Got to limit those to a couple yards per carry. You don't want North Miami to open this game, if you would. And North Miami's got a lot of potential to do so. They're not a one-trick pony at North Miami. And so this is going to be a tall task for South Adams. This will easily be their toughest test yet in this state tournament. They really haven't been tested up to this point in the playoffs. Madison Grant did give them some trouble in the game. Try early on, did try some nice things and made it difficult early. But really, other than that, they really haven't been tested whatsoever. And when you look at the 1A playoffs, South Adams were to win this game to repeat as regional champions, they would either host Pioneer or they would travel to LaVille. And I'm going to be honest with you, it's a 50-50 chance on what happens on the Pioneer-LaVille game. I know Pioneer's 11-1. They have the history they do, but LaVille did knock off North Judson in the state tournaments. So there's always a possibility that you could be facing LaVille in semi-state. So with North Judson out of the playoffs in 1A North, things do open up a little bit for 1A North. There is a possibility that South Adams could, and I mean could, get back to Lucas Oil Stadium. But I think for that to happen, they got to first slow down the North Miami power attack of the Warriors. Got to stop the run. Got to force some turnovers. Got to limit their drives, and then you got to play clean football offensively. No bad penalties. No turnovers that are going to be costly. You got to be playing good football, smart, disciplined football. And South Adams has done that up to this point. We know the air raid attack's going to be that they're going to score some points. That's what South Adams is known for. But the key is going to be, can they make enough plays defensively, and can they play clean football in the team little area, which we saw a couple of times last week where those small little things went down to the wire, and it really made a big difference in some of those games. Let's go ahead and look at Class 2A with Adams Central facing Eastbrook at Adams Central. That is going to be our the NEC game of the week. There are going to be 2 games of the week. We will preview also the South Adams North Miami game. That's one of our games of the week. The Adams Central game hosting Eastbrook at home, that will be our premier game of the week at NEC Sports. That's the game we are going to have our eyes on the most, is the Eastbrook Adams Central game. We kind of knew going into prior to this matchup even becoming a possibility, that there was a chance with how both of these teams have played over the course of the season. There was a chance that we could see Adams Central and Eastbrook playing in the regional round. We saw all year long how Adams Central was ranked number 1 in 2A. Eastbrook was just a few spots behind them all year long. And you knew with how things played out, especially after Eastbrook's miracle in Alexandria. I know Alexandria fans are going to hate me for mentioning that again, but that play, that moment in Eastbrook's history is going to be remembered for a long, long time, if not forever. And so now you look at this situation here, and if there's been any time for this Adams Central team to fall before they get to states, this is probably the game right there. Adams Central hasn't had very many games in the course of 5 years where their run was potentially in jeopardy. I mean, last year, you look back to that run to the state championship last year, Andrean was probably their toughest test by far in that state run. And you look at that game, it was just a valiant effort from Adams Central, a strong team, noble effort in that game at Andrean, the Fighting 59ers. And that was a tough win, which they won by only 7 points last year, if I remember right. And it was 20-13 at Andrean. So on the way to dominating Lynn Stockton and win the state championship. So you got the matchup with Eastbrook coming in. Adams Central runs that traditional wing T offense. We know what they are with the Jets. They absolutely obliterated Eastside in the first half. Just set the tempo in that game early. They jumped out to a massive lead against the Blazers. They were up. I'll have to check real quick here. I think they were up 24-0 at one point in that game against Eastside, which they were home. They were up 25-0 half. They were up, I believe they were up 32-0 even in the third quarter. And then Eastside marched their way back, and they cut it down to, I believe it was like 32-25 in the fourth quarter before Adams Central eventually pulled away and winning by 21 points, 53-32. A good effort from Eastside in the second half. Noah Dove had a really strong game as a sophomore, 16 carries, 137 yards, and a touchdown. Joe Richmond, as a junior, 7-14 passing, 152 yards, 3 TDs. He did have the one pick in the game, 23 carries, 108 rushing yards, and a No touchdowns on the round for him, but still a good game nonetheless. Eastside put a good effort, and I told you before the game last week that Eastside was going to put their 110% effort, even if they don't win this game, and they did show that, especially in the second half against Adams Central. The Jets finding the ways to win games when they needed to most, and the Jets obviously they would have liked to play better in the second half than what they did, but at the end of the day, it's all about survive and advance for the Adams Central Flying Jets. You don't make it to states for 4 years in a row, potentially 5 if they can win these next 2 weeks, potentially 5. You don't get to that point without having a couple games going in your favor and winning some of those gritty games that maybe you don't play your best football, but you still find a way to win that game and whatnot. And Adams Central's had plenty of those the last couple years. And so you look at the Jets, you look at the matchup with Eastbrook. And before we talked about the Jets, I just want to get right to Eastbrook because this Eastbrook Panthers team, they had a 4-6 record last year. They didn't play at the level they didn't win at the level of Eastbrook standards. But this year, obviously, has been a different story for Eastbrook with an experienced team back this year, great senior class. And, you look at this Eastbrook team, they run an option offense at Eastbrook. So that they're going to throw a couple tricks up their sleeve. They'll have a lot of play action with Eastbrook, but they're definitely going to be a team that runs the option formation. They're going to be a team that runs the football first and then utilize the passing game if needed to try to get some first downs and really try to keep the defense honest, if you would. You looked at the playoff run. We know about the Alexandria game. I don't need to talk about this over and over again. If you don't know what I'm talking about, the Alexandria game, just look up Eastbrook Alexandria miracle win or whatever, and you'll find the information from there. I mean, Pat McAfee even talked about this game, so I don't need to state more to it than it already is. The Rochester game, I already mentioned this last week. It was a kind of a close game early on, and then Eastbrook just kind of punched Rochester in the mouth in the second half, and they won 42-14. But the game last week against Eastern Greentown was one I had a hard time figuring out because Eastern Greentown was a very good team this year. Obviously, they won sectionals last year. However, Eastern Greentown had not really played anybody up to this point that was going to potentially give Eastbrook some trouble in this game. And to Eastern Greentown's credit, they played better than I expected in the game last week at Eastbrook. And Eastern Greentown, at one point in this game, they were up 1 or 2 scores in the first half against Eastbrook. And, to Eastbrook's credit, they grinded it out and they didn't panic. They showed that they can win even in tough situations. They learned something from the Alexandria game to show, hey, look, we can get into tough spots, but we can find ways to win when we're even in a tough situation. And Eastbrook did that in the third quarter game. 2 big touchdowns in the third quarter to put Eastbrook ahead 31-28, to which they would hang on and winning that game by the score of 31-28. You had Matt Slater's rushing TD to cut it down to 5 in that game, despite missing the 2-point conversion. And then you look at the go-ahead score once again from Mr. Matt Slater himself, getting the 2-point conversion following Bodie Howe's 84-yard rushing TD for the Eastbrook Panthers. So, with Eastbrook, they got a lot of money, a lot of players that are money for the Eastbrook Panthers. Bodie Howe, what is more to be said? It's Bodie Howe. I mean, he's a star athlete when it comes to Eastbrook High School, right? I don't know how Bodie Howe doesn't get the attention he does because he's just like his sister. I mean, Olivia Howe was a fantastic athlete at Eastbrook when it came to cross country, when it came to basketball, and it came to track and field. That's why she's at Huntington University right now for Huntington, graduating from Eastbrook. So we know that the athletes are there with Eastbrook. We've known this for a while. You got their tight end, Jacob McDermott, had some big catches throughout the course of the playoffs for him at Eastbrook. And then we got their kick returner or punt returner. I call him Gary Scary. Gary Cook, always cooking something up his sleeve at Eastbrook. And then you got the Ryder Gibson, really good running back for the Eastbrook Panthers. They got some tough dudes up front at Eastbrook. They are just they're exceptionally well coached. But when you have a coach to the level of Jeff Adamson, and I mean, that alone, the coaching matchup of Jeff Adamson and Michael Mosier alone deserves to be somewhere in Hollywood somewhere making a film here, because Jeff Adamson and Michael Mosier are 2 of the greatest coaches in Indiana football history. They're Hall of Fame coaches. Let's put it that way. Jeff Adamson is 100% surefire Hall of Famer, and then Michael Mosier is definitely in that midst as well. 2 all-time great coaches, even better human beings. I've talked to both of these coaches in the past, so I know exactly the type of people they are between Mosier and Adamson. You look at Eastbrook, you know the guy Mason Shell with 7 sacks on the season with this Eastbrook squad. So when you look at this matchup, this is going to be easily Adam Central's toughest test yet with the Eastbrook Panthers, because with Eastbrook, they're not going to throw the ball as much as what Adam Central faced with Eastside and what they faced with Bluffton. And I mean, Eastbrook's going to make plays in the passing game when they need to, but their game is primarily on blocking, getting open holes and slots for the running backs and for Bodie Howland to do their magic. That's what Eastbrook's formula has been for so long, is they are a team that plays hard-nosed football and they play fast. I mean, this team runs a fast-paced offense with this Eastbrook squad. And you look at the offense. I know Ryder Gibson and Bodie Howland get a lot of the attention. They got what? Nearly 2,200 yards rushing combined between the two guys. I mean, those two are just fantastic players, along with 36 touchdowns combined. But you got even Miles Brown and Matt Slater at times. They got guys that kind of chip in here and there. And there's a lot of depth with this Eastbrook team. And then the receiving game, we know Slater, the type of playmaker he is. And then you got Jacob McDermott. They're tied in. They're blocking tight end. They can make plays when he needs to with Mr. McDermott. So they got some big play athletes with the Eastbrook Panthers. They don't make a lot of mistakes. They stay true to what they are known for, and they're not fazed by the moment here. I mean, you saw that in the Alexandria game. They were not fazed in that moment against Alexandria. And I'm just telling you this right now. They are not going to be intimidated with Adams Central. Eastbrook's got a tradition of their own. And so this Eastbrook team is going to be a challenge for the Jets, something we have not seen since the Andrean game last year. This will be their biggest test yet for the Jets, and it will be the biggest test for Eastbrook. So I'm not just saying like Adams Central's in trouble here. Like, both teams know this is going to be their toughest test yet. And it's going to come down to which team is going to make the plays when it matters most. These two teams are going to get their points. They're going to get their opportunities. You can't stop Adams Central all the way. They run that wing tee that where there's a lot of deception. There's a lot of trickery with the Adams Central offense. It's hard to stop this offense. They tackle and block better than anybody else in the Northeast Indiana area. Nobody does it like Adams Central does. Look, you don't scrimmage Bishop Luers back in August for no reason whatsoever. You scrimmage Bishop Luers because you have a team that can defend the state championship. And Adams Central has had a standard so high for so long that you know what to expect with the Jets. Jamison Roach is very much a Bodie Howe-ish type of player for the Jets. He'll make plays when he needs to, but he's incredibly athletic, incredibly explosive. I mean, I saw the Bluffton game 2 weeks ago, and he just made some plays that are just unbelievable for a quarterback of Jamison Roach. I mean, his legs, his vision, the way he can see the field and make plays on the fly. He just knows how to create separation and make plays that matter most for the Jets here. And look, he will not take all the credit in the world for this. I mean, he'll always thank his teammates and thank the offensive line and his running back. So the Jets have weapons of their own. And you look at the Eastbrook offense. The big thing for Eastbrook is they're going to have to take care of business against those big boys up front with the Adams Central Flying Jets. And the one I always keep talking about is Cam Frable, their senior edge rusher defensive end for the Flying Jets. He is an absolute problem for opposing offenses. Look at Adams Central's run to the regional up to this point. Every one of those games, they have caused some form of frustration to all three of these offenses. You look at Reese Hammond, who had a fumble recovery for a score and a pick six against Eastside. Those are two critical scores that changed the outcome of the game right there. I mean, that's 14 points just from one guy making two defensive plays alone. Reese Hammond was fantastic last week against Eastside. He was nominated as a finalist for Performer of the Week. You have Chase Schnitz, their sophomore at corner. Ben Beckner. Obviously, Jamison Roach plays safety, strong safety for them. Joey Everett doesn't get a lot of attention at Adams Central. Quietly having a nice playoff run of himself as well. He was pretty good the last couple of games against Bluffton and Eastside. He also plays corner. And then Braylon Reber, if he was on a team that runs a spread offense, Braylon Reber would be talked about for days and weeks and months and hours alike. Braylon Reber, 6'4", basketball skills like crazy for Braylon Reber. He just made some of the most unbelievable plays I've ever seen from an Adams Central player. He don't get mentioned nearly as much because they don't utilize the pass as much, because that's not what they are known for. They're known for being a wing T offense. But when Reber makes those opportunities, boy, does he impress people when he does so. Vance Miller, great year as a senior for Adams Central as their fullback for the Jets. He has been their first option in the handoff for the Jets offense in the run game when it's not Jamison Rhodes. Vance Miller has been big the last few weeks as well for him. Nate Gierkin, a tackle, big-time tackle for the Jets as a senior. Ben Hershey, a junior tackle, another good player on the offensive line. We mentioned Cam Frabel, what he does on both ends. Lucas Rumpel, outside linebacker. Chandler Vogelweed. And, I mean, Thomas Laughlin had 3 touchdowns against Bluffton, right? And you got, I believe it was Hayden Bloom, who runs both offense and defensive line. I mean, there's plenty of guys that I don't feel like I mentioned nearly enough at Adams Central, but they're just such a great cohesive team here. You can see where this is going here. Like there's a lot of potential for this Adams Central Eastbrook game to be one of the all-time great football games out there. There's just so many things about these two teams that they do so well. They don't have very many weaknesses. I guess the only weakness these two teams really have is they don't throw the ball a lot compared to some of these teams in 2A and 3A and 4A and whatnot and upwards. They don't do that nearly as much. Obviously, they're not to the level of South Adams when it comes to the football, but they don't need to because they stay true to what they're good at. They're good at blocking. They're good at running their wing tee or their option attack. They know how to switch things up when they need to try to keep the defenses honest and try to find some type of mismatch along the way. And they know how to make those big plays and play action situations when they need to most. And I'll talk more about this game later on this week, leading up to Friday's game against Eastbrook at Adams Central. This will be a ruckus atmosphere in Monroe, one of the biggest games of the entire season. No question about it. I'm just going to put this out there, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'll eat my words. The winner of this game is going to the state finals. I am almost 100% sure of it. Now, okay, obviously you got to worry about Andrean, and I'm expecting Andrean back in semi-state. So there's always a possibility that if Andrean wins this week, there's a possibility Andrean could put a wrinkle on that. I mean, if you look at Andrean, they're going to have to. If Eastbrook wins, they would go to Eastbrook. If Adams Central wins, Andrean would still be hosting that game. But I'm just going to go and put it out there. The winner of this Adams Central Eastbrook game, I think, goes to the state finals. I think these two teams are really, really good, and I think there's a decent chance of that happening. But obviously, you got to play your cards. And so I'm just telling you this, I have no idea who really wins this game. I really don't. I think the Jets will have a chance to win this game, but I'm just saying I don't know for sure what's going to happen because this is one of Adams Central's toughest tests they've had in their 5 years of dominance. There just hasn't been a lot of teams that can match up Adams Central this well. Eastbrook's going to have a chance. They got the athletes, the gamers, and it's Jeff Adamson. You know this team's going to have a chance in this game. But obviously, Adams Central being defending state champions, you know the Jets are going to have that confidence coming in. This is going to be a great football game. I'm really excited. I'm so happy we get this game because I think this will be an all-time Super Sam Classic in Monroe, Indiana. Class 3, enough talk about Adams Central Eastbrook because we need to get to 3A. 2 matchups here. Let's go with Bishop Luers first because Bishop Luers has a matchup coming up against oh golly, I'm blanking for just a minute. I don't know why I'm blanking here. Bishop Luers is playing Twin Lakes. I don't know why I blanked there for just a moment, but Luers is at Twin Lakes. And I mean, come on. If you've known me for so long, if you know Bishop Luers, you knew this was kind of expected. I understand Mrs. Senewa has a great team. I understand they've been so good for a few years. But let's be honest. If Ole Miss doesn't score in the red zone, Bishop Luers is going to win this football game. You have Bishop Luers here, 7-5 in the season. They are coming off a 23-10 win at Mrs. Senewa for the Bishop Luers Knights. This was a close game, really, for the most of the contest. I think this was only a 14-10 game in the fourth quarter. Was it 14? Yeah, I think it was 14-10 the fourth quarter. Ole Miss is right at the goal line, and they fumble the ball at the goal line. And you know who recovers it? Oh, it's none other than sophomore Rory Kelly. And he returns it 99 yards. First touchdown. And you can just tell right there, the sales at Ole Miss completely disappeared. You knew the game was over. Like, that's a deflating moment for Ole Miss. I mean, it's Bishop Luers. You give that type of return for Bishop Luers, that's deflating for Ole Miss. You feel for the Ole Miss kids. because they did put up a good effort against Bishop Luers. Really defensively gave Ole Miss a chance in this game, but you knew Bishop Luers, with the playmakers they have, the gamers they do have at Bishop Luers, and the defense they run at Luers, you knew the Luers was going to have a chance. And in Bishop Luers fashion, they continue to find ways to grind out wins in the playoffs. That's why Bishop Luers is always ready for the playoffs. They play the SAC schedule, and everybody talks about Bishop Luers is mediocre. And I put in the SAC. But when they're playing 3A competition, they're a different team. And I'll tell you what, Thomas Riker was not fantastic last week against Ole Miss. You got to give Ole Miss credit. Last week, they did give Riker more issues this time around. But I think you also got to look at and say kudos to some of the guys that really chipped in and stepped up for Bishop Luers in those key games. You look at their running back and TJ Epperson, 136 rushing yards, 21 carries. He didn't score a touchdown, but those are critical moments for Bishop Luers in a game that was only a 23-10 game for Bishop Luers. And for most of the night, it was only a one-score game. So those yards are critical for Bishop Luers, knowing that offense was going to come at a premium with a very solid Ole Miss defense. And Ole Miss did a pretty good job of containing the wide receivers and really just kind of frustrating the passing game and really causing some trouble there for Bishop Luers. But I think I go back to Rory Kelly kind of being one of the unsung heroes in that win for Luers. You got the Taylor kids having great games as well for Bishop Luers. They really held Elijah Monday in check in that game for the Bishop Luers Knights as well. Again, defense playing a huge role. They've only given up, 29 points in the entire postseason so far. And so that's huge, right? They've scored 23 last week. They're only given up 29 in the entire postseason alone. Holding Elijah Monday in check the way they did, I think was one of the big reasons why Luers won this game, other than that 99-yard return from Rory Kelly. And so it sets up the matchup with Twin Lakes. Solid program from the Lafayette area with the Twin Lakes Indians. 10-2 on the season are Twin Lakes. 10-2 on the season. They were coming off a nice win against Western on the road, 35-19, in which Twin Lakes winning their first sectional championship since the good year of 2002. Yeah, sure, I got that right. It's been a while for Twin Lakes, about 23 years since they last won a sectional championship for football at Twin Lakes. You look at their postseason, took care of some really good teams along the way. They beat McConaughey by 16. They were second place in the TRC going into the playoffs. You got a win against Peru by 14. Not a bad team from the TRC, and then Western, a team that definitely has been one of the better teams in the Hoosier Conference for quite a while, which they're in the same conference. So you knew that there was some motivation at stake for both teams. You looked at that game against Western. Twin Lakes and Western was only a 14-13 game in favor of Twin Lakes after the first quarter before they outscored them the rest of the way, 21-6. And Western did not score a single point after the first half. So you knew that Twin Lakes' defense played a huge role in this game. And Twin Lakes doesn't throw the ball a ton in this, for this team compared to, say, Bishop Luers. 9-15 for 210 yards. Okay, pretty decent number. 60% completion. 2 touchdowns for the junior quarterback in Cooper Dold. See, Cooper Dold. And solid quarterback there. They don't run the ball a lot, so they're typically more of a spread offense at Twin Lakes. And the guy there's 2 guys they really go to. They don't really go to a lot of guys, really just those 2 guys. And Ethan Need, who's a senior, and then their junior is Ledger Schaefer. And Need had 3 catches for 112 yards. Schaefer, 3 catches for 87 yards and 2 touchdowns for Schaefer. You look at this Twin Lakes team. They run that spread offense, and they pretty rely on about 3 guys at Twin Lakes. And those 3 guys have to be exceptional once again if you're going to beat Bishop Luers on Friday night. Defensively, when you look at Twin Lakes, there's a couple of names to watch here. Matthew, I think it's, Matthew Walting, I believe it is. Walter, I don't know what his last name actually is. They call him Chewy at Twin Lakes. He had 13 tackles for Twin Lakes against Western. In that game, they have a junior in Mason Brummett. We have 12, 14 from Mr. Ledger Schaefer, as I mentioned earlier. 12 from another sophomore, DJ Guthrie. 19 from junior Ben Hodgin. So nice defensive front for the Twin Lakes Indians. That could be an advantage for Twin Lakes potentially against a young offense in Bishop Luers. So that could be key for Twin Lakes on Friday night. And unlike the CIC, and I'm not trying to make the CIC like it's a bad conference, but unlike the CIC, the Hoosier Conference is a pretty solid conference in football. And so I think there's going to be it's definitely going to be more of a challenge for Bishop Luers on Friday because Twin Lakes definitely runs more of a spread. They got some nice athletes there. It's a nice football area in Tippecanoe County, and their defensive front's pretty good. They got some guys that can flat out just tackle the numbers, if you would, at Twin Lakes. And so Luers' key is going to be number one, Bishop Luers' athletes are going to have to and be the playmakers they are, number one. Number two, they're going to have to play clean football. So far for Bishop Luers, they've been mostly playing clean football, although they've had their hiccups over the course of the season. And yeah, they don't score a lot of points, but they're not going to score as many points as other teams in our area, but they're going to get the job done when they need to. And the other thing for Bishop Luers is, I think the biggest reason why Bishop Luers is at this position they're in right now, their defense has been an MVP. They have been the keys to Bishop Luers' success. And without the Bishop Luers defense all around, not just the defensive front, not just the backfield, but all across the board, the weapons of Bishop Luers have been critical in getting Luers in the position they're in right now to try to make it back to the state finals, which they did so last year as a team that nobody kind of expected to be there, to be quite honest with you, and they lost to Heritage Hills. Now, keep in mind, if Bishop Luers does reach the state finals, hit the states, they'll move up to 4A next year. So that's the thing with Bishop Luers is they would have to get to state because they did not move up to 4A. But right now, Bishop Luers is in position to once again get back to semi-state once again this year. And we looked at Bishop Luers' defense real quick. It's going to come down to the Taylor kids. It's going to come down to Brow and Migrants and Arnold and Hill and Holly and Carswell, the Woodson kid, right? And I mean, that's going to be the key for Bishop Luers. It's going to take a collective team effort defensively once again to make it back to semi-state, which if Bishop Luers were to win this week, they would face the winner of our next team we're going to talk about, which is Knott's or Angola. Keep in mind, no matter what, if Bishop Luers wins this week, they're hosting the semi-state no matter what, either Knott's or Angola. Although, let's be completely honest, and I'm not trying to be a doubting Thomas, if you would, when it comes to Angola, but realistically, it's going to be a very tall task for the Angola Hornets to beat Knott's this week. I love what Angola's done. They've had a beautiful story, one of the great stories that we've done since NEC Sports has been around since 2018. This Angola team they keep finding ways to stay alive in this football race. They had a pretty tough draw coming in with Tippecanoe Valley, and the way the Valley runs their run attack and the way they can stop the run defensively. They're so physical and tough at Tippy Valley. And Angola did a marvelous job against Tippy Valley in the first round. And then they got the West Snowball game. And then even the Garrett game too. Twice Angola was at the very brink of elimination in those two games with West Snowball and Garrett. And especially with Garrett's. Down 2 scores in the fourth quarter. Not an ideal situation for Angola whatsoever. And they found a way to pull off 2 big wins at West Snowball and then the home against Garrett. And we'll talk about Hawk in just a moment here, but the last 2 minutes of the Angola Garrett game, those were probably the most nerve-wracking, dramatic 2 minutes of football I have ever covered in all my years of NEC Sports. I've never seen anything like this before. And keep in mind, Angola had the dramatic win at Culver Academies to win the sectional 2017 with Eric Cockroft's field goal to win the game. Shout out to Mark Cockroft, by the way, at Hometown Media and Angola. 2018, they were underdogs against Northwood, and they had a kid that was going to William & Mary for Division I football, and they ran that flex bone offense at Northwood, and they had all those big name guys under Coach Andrews at Northwood, and they were heavy favorites to get the states. And Angola, in the wet mud, and the wet grounds of the Hornets' Nest, they won a close one with some great names in Angola. I can go on forever. In 2018, they repeated sectional champions those 2 years. Those were dramatic wins at the time, but I don't know if those two come close to what happened in the last 2 minutes of last week's game against Garrett. I've never seen anything like this, where Angola was down to the very brink of elimination, not once, not twice, not thrice, not 4 times, 5 times. And maybe the most critical of them all was when Angola did not convert the 2-point conversion with 35 seconds left, 36 seconds left. And it just, you thought maybe this was it. Like, you didn't get that 2-point conversion. I'm thinking, so Garrett's going to repeat sectional champions. And then Angola pulls off an improbable finish, the onside kick. Dallas Davidson recovers the onside kick. And then the very next play or 2 plays later, Brady Ravis throws a deep ball to Tyler Ruppel from about, 30, 40 yards out. Makes an unbelievable catch in double coverage right at the Garrett 5-yard line. And I'm thinking, is Angola going to do it again? Is this team really going to do it again? Oh, yeah. They did it again. And Hawk Hasselman did it again. Andy and I talked about the senior class. And obviously, it's something Andy knows a lot because of his son, Alex Thomas, who's had a nice career at Angola. He's went through those ups and downs, just like the other senior class, senior teammates at Angola. But man, have they found another gear in this playoffs? Angola's had a really tough season, full of ups and downs. They just keep finding ways. Yeah, they probably made Andy Thomas a little more nervous than it really should be. I think they would like to play a little more nerve-free football this time around. But hey, it's not about how you won. It's just a matter of did you win the game. And you know what? Angola did that. Hawk Hasselman, those last 2 games, he's been so important to the Angola team. He had those 3 touchdowns in the win against West Snowball. But even the game against Garrett, he had a rushing touchdown. No, he had two receiving touchdowns, and then he threw one for another touchdown, right? And then he had the 20-yard field goal with about less than 5 seconds left in the game to win it 30-28. One of the most crazy, I'm just speechless even describing this. One of the most epic finishes, not only in Angola history, but in the history of IHSA football. I know it's not going to be like Eastbrook Alexandria. I'm aware of that. But this one is just such a consolation prize. Like, I've never seen anything like this before. I've never seen an onside kick go the way it did. I've never seen a game decide the way it did in Angola and Garrett. And I can't really explain that to you because I still can't quite get my mind wrapped around what happened in that game. I still don't quite understand what happened in that game fully. That's how much shocked I am that Angola is still here. And they got a real tall task against Knots. I'm not trying to be a doubter here, but this is going to be a tough game for Angola because if Angola struggles like they did at times against Garrett, it's probably going to be a short football game against Knots. They're going to have to play perfect football against the Knots. This Knots team, they've played at a level that I don't think I've seen before with the Knots Redskins. And trust me, I've seen quite a bit with Knots. They have had some amazing teams over the past few years. And they used to be in the same sectional. And they used to be in sectional 26 before they got moved to 25. And we saw last year what Knots can do against Garrett. I know Garrett beat them last year in regionals, but understand that took a lot of effort from Garrett just to win that game. It was a 41-40 Garrett win last year. I mean, Garrett couldn't even play at the level they normally play defensively because Miles McLaughlin is just so good not even as a running back, just a player in general. It's so hard to slow down this offense. They are so big and so tough up front. They are so well coached in terms of what they do in the blocking scheme. They know exactly how to run every single play to a T. And when you have a coach to the level of Russ Rackey, nearly 50 years of coaching throughout his time in the northwestern part of the state, whether if it's North Judson or Connorsville's kind of the exception here, North Judson and Griffith and New Prairie and now Knott's, that area has seen plenty of Russ Rackey all over the fingerprints of that area of the states. And that continues to run that traditional double wing attack that Russ Rackey is known for. And everybody knows that Miles McLaughlin's going to get his 30, 40 carries. They still can't stop him. That's how good he is. And I've already, everybody's been talking about this enough, so I don't need to state it more than it has to be. Miles McLaughlin, rushing wise, 409 carries, 4,396 yards, 67 touchdowns. I've never seen anything like this before. I've never seen this before. These are Derrick Henry numbers. I've never seen this before. He's got 11,389 rushing yards in his career. He's number one all time in the state. He's fourth in the nation. And he's what, less than 300 yards rushing away, maybe? From, I don't know. Well, he's within, he's within grasp of the national record. I've covered sports for over a decade or nearly a decade. I've never seen anything like this before in my entire life. These are numbers that are just insane to me. I know there have been players that come through over the course of years, and Derrick Henry's the big one. Everybody knows Derrick Henry from his time mostly with Tennessee. Now he's in Baltimore. We saw the interview with Kay Adams, right? We've seen the interview. We know, and he talks a lot of praise about Miles and Knots and whatnot. And Coach Thomas is honest. Like, look, Knots is going to be a challenge. They're so well coached. They are so good at what they do. And Angola is going to have a tall task. Now, like I said, it's the David Goliath situation with Angola and Knots. We'll see what Angola can do. We'll see what they can do. Angola's going to have no pressure, no matter what happens. They have no pressure. Angola should not come in with a lot of stress here. Nobody's giving Angola a chance whatsoever in this game. This is one of the biggest lopsided matchups on paper in a while. Like, Angola is a true Cinderella in this case. The Hornets should not feel pressured whatsoever in this game. It doesn't matter what happens in that game. They should not feel any pressure at all. Nobody, and nobody's giving Angola a chance. Everybody's cheering for Miles McLaughlin to break their national record. Nobody's talking about Angola. Some of these people from outside the state are thinking, where's Angola at? Who are these guys? No, it's not what I'm saying. This is what people outside of the state are saying. Like, nobody's giving Angola a chance here. So the Hornets should not feel like they're being disrespected, although I'm sure there's some of that motivation for sure. But they should come with no pressure. I think Angola's going to come in playing spirit-free Angola football. They're going to stay true to what they are, and they're going to do the best they can to challenge the Knots Redskins. It's going to be a challenge. I know it's going to be. I've seen Knots for quite a while, and I've covered Knots before. This is going to be a tough game for Angola. Really tough game. I hope for the best for the Angola Hornets, but this is definitely tough for Angola. No question about it. We'll see what they can do for Angola. They weren't supposed to be here. They're here. We'll see what Angola has up their sleeves on Friday nights. And by the way, like I said, you'll catch my interview with Andy Thomas, which talks more about the run with Angola. Once again, no matter what happens at Knots, what a great postseason for the Angola Hornets. What an amazing run for the Hornets. Okay, Bishop Luers. Luers knocks off the number one team in 4A, East Noble, 32-0. Now, I don't think we're too surprised by the outcome. I think considering East Noble probably came in a little shorthanded, not having the stud freshman in Austin Phillips probably did not help East Noble at all in that game because, Luers already a tall task as it is because of the defense being so elite as it is. But, yeah, not having Austin Phillips at his full usual self, or not even really being, him being injured definitely didn't help things for East Noble. They've had some other injuries. East Noble's they've been battle tested with the injuries on and off all season long in some shape or form. So East Noble's had an amazing run of football. They've played a lot of football the last couple years. That's still an incredible run. They're going to be back next year. I have no doubts of that. East Noble's going to have to replace some guys, yes, but I have faith with East Noble. They're going to be back. Maybe not number one in the state next year, but they'll still be good again. But anyway, Bishop Luers, great run for the Saints. They've just been on fire for the Saints as of late. Ever since that tough loss to Northrop back on September 26th, they have been just on a whole nother level. They've had 2 shutouts the last 2 weeks. They've held teams to below 14 points in every single game since that loss to Northrop. And, the Saints still found a way, even that loss to Northrop, they still found a way to win the SEC despite that loss to the Bruins. And really just, it's really been a team effort for the Saints. Henry Jordan, there's nothing fancy about Henry Jordan's stats, but just another respectable, solid quarterback for what he brings for the Saints. They are a balanced team across the board. Adrian Shefferly had a great game, 12 carries, 126 yards, 3 TDs for him. Let's see, you had their wide receiver in Beckham Russell, 49 yards receiving on 4 catches for him. But really, when you look at the Saints, it's just been a well-run machine defensively. Just every single guy across the board, they have fulfilled their roles exceptionally well. I mean, you look at a guy that's played well in the playoffs, Houston Ellinger, both ways has been excellent this postseason for the Bishop Luers Saints. You got K.C. Piper, great year for him as a senior defensive tackle. You got 7 tackles from a junior in Cooper Campo, great year from him as well. They did a great job getting the quarterback, 5 TFLs, 74 tackles, 3 sacks in the game. Ellinger was one of them. You had Gunnar McCarthy with a sack and Sam Becker with a sack as well. They also had 2 picks, both coming from Jackson Parrish, senior free safety, 2 picks for him, 7 pass deflections, something nobody talked enough about. Campo with a fumble recovery for him. And then one guy that probably got snubbed in the All-SEC list, Carter Zenz, quietly having an amazing year at free safety. It's a junior, no less, for the Bishop Luers Saints. And obviously, Lucas Gwen, I would say probably the best kicker in the Fort Wayne area. He's just that good of a kicker. Like, I've seen a little bit of Lucas Gwen. I'm thinking, this dude can kick the ball big time. I mean, this guy's going to get opportunities in college because there's just not very many kickers like Lucas Gwen out there. I mean, when you set the school record for longest field goal twice, you got something special here. And so I think Bishop Luers is a well-oiled machine. There's nothing flashy about Bishop Luers. I mean, that's the thing about the Saints. They are Bishop Luers to the T. The Dwayner way, the way they do things, it's so Bishop Luers. And again, you don't shut out East Noble for nothing. I know, I mean, I get it. East Noble was not 100%. I understand that. But Bishop Luers clearly came in with some motivation from last year. And clearly Bishop Luers took advantage of some of East Noble's weaknesses in that game. And I mean, you got to give Bishop Luers a lot of credit for what they did. That was a well-performed sectional run for Dwayner. And they'll be tested a little bit against Lebanon on Friday. Lebanon's a pretty solid team from the Sagamore Conference. 10-2 record, averaging 31 points per game. Although with Lebanon, they haven't been tested to the level of Bishop Luers, and we understand that. We are fully aware of that. But, they played Pendleton Heights, lost by 8 points there. They played La Lafayette. They played Marion. Marion's not that great, though. They played McCutcheon, solid team. They lost to Harrison, really solid team in 6A. I almost said 4A, but they're in 6A in football. And then, obviously, the game against Logansport, 21-17 winner for Lebanon at Logansport, a team that nearly lost to Huntington North in the first round. So, kind of an interesting game for Lebanon. And obviously, I would fully expect most people to pick Bishop Luers in this game just because, well, it is Dwayner. We kind of expect that. And then I think Dwayner's defense has been so good this year. It's going to be hard for Lebanon to generate any offense in this game. But Lebanon's going to have a pretty decent game on the air with their quarterback and Chris Hill, their senior, 10-15 passing for 150 yards, 2 TDs. I am curious to see what he does against the Dwayner front. This is a whole different beast for him. This isn't Logansport. This is clearly going to be a different test for Lebanon. They have not faced really before. Lebanon's playing their first regional, by the way, since 1997. Literally, and I mean literally, nearly 3 months after I was born. That's how long it's been for Lebanon since they reached regionals. This is only their second ever regional appearance for the Lebanon Tigers under first-year head coach Josh Yoder. I wish Lebanon the best, but it's going to be a tall task for the Tigers. I don't know how they're going to generate enough offense against Bishop Luers, because if Dwayner's defense plays at the level they've played all year long, this is going to be a tough game for Lebanon, because I don't know if Lebanon quite has the athleticism on both ends to stop this Dwayner train. I fully expect Dwayner to win this game. And let's see, Dwayner is going to be at Lebanon. So I guess the only downside for Dwayner is they got to go to Lebanon. Kind of a long bus ride, but I mean, Dwayner's used to this. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I mean, they've been used to long bus rides. They've been to Indio and Cali just this year. So I would expect Dwayner to win this game, to be perfectly honest with you. It's nothing against Lebanon, but Dwayner's just, they're playing at a whole nother level that I have not seen in really since 2021 for Bishop Luers. And really, I mean, if you look back at Bishop Luers, it reminds me very much of those teams in the past, like the 1983 team that won states, or you got, let's see here. You had what, the 1983 team, maybe the 1990 team, 91, 2018, definitely a special year there. So I feel like, and I don't want to jinx it here, but it kind of feels like Dwayne has a chance to get back to states. It does kind of feel like this could be the year to get back to states. They got all the pieces to do so. They got all the pieces to get back to state. And guess what, folks? There's no new pound for it. So they got a chance. They got a chance here. They got a chance. Now, if Dwayne wins this game, they would either host South Bend St. Joe, or they'll travel to the Brickyard, which, if you don't know what I'm talking about, the Brickies of Hobart. So they either host South Bend St. Joe, or they'll travel to the region to face Hobart. I know people like to say Hobart, but it's not the right pronunciation. It is pronounced Hobart. So just want to make sure you're aware of that. St. Joe, by the way, first sectional championship for St. Joe since 2015, I believe, for South Bend St. Joe. Congratulations on their win against Mishawaka last week. We don't cover that area, but we just want to say congratulations to St. Joe. They don't get these chances very often, so it's good to see St. Joe getting into regionals and 4A. And then Class 5A. We talked about the Concord Miniman. And, Concord has had plenty of heartbreak in the playoffs in recent years. A strong football tradition for the Concord Miniman under Craig Kaler. First sectional championship since 2018. And the last time they won sectionals, well, they got destroyed by Michigan City. I mean, they lost them twice in a row in regionals. Well, good news for Concord is they don't have to worry about Michigan City this time around, because now you got good old Lafayette Jeff. And they're going to Elkhart. Remember, Concord's home field is still under construction because they're putting in turf, right? It's still under construction until next year. So Concord's going to have to. So Concord will be hosting, quote unquote, hosting, but it's going to be at Elkhart's Rice Field when they face the Lafayette Jet Bronchos of Lafayette Jet, another strong school in Tippecanoe Valley, Tippecanoe County. I knew this would happen one of these days with that area. But anyway, you look at Concord again last year. Last couple years they've lost some heartbreakers in the sectional championship games. They lost to Mishawaka several times when they were in the same sectional. Now Mishawaka was in 4A. Last year, heartbreaking loss to Warsaw. They were up in the fourth quarter, and Warsaw came back to break their hearts in the sectional championship game. This year for Concord, it's kind of been a revenge season for the Concord Minimum. 10-1 this season for them, averaging 39 points per game, only giving up 20.6. We knew Concord was going to have a tough road to win the sectional. They had a pretty interesting first round matchup against Warsaw, which was hosted by Penn in that first round matchup. Again, it was only a one-score game early in the fourth quarter. Then Concord got a fourth down stop deep into their own end, and then Reese Brevard returned to 91 yards on the first play of scrimmage, gets a touchdown, and Concord ends up winning that game 45-28 in that game. And then you get to the Northside game, and Craig Kaler was concerned about that matchup with Northside. And for me, if anybody knows about Northside, we know that Legends have plenty of talent of their own with the Jaden Rivers and the Caleb Kinnelly's and the anybody by the name of Johnson and Moore and Harrison, right? You knew Northside was going to have a chance. And with Northside, I mean, it was only a 14-10 game in the second quarter. And it was kind of an interesting game because they had its moments where nothing happened offensively, really, to get any type of offense. And then they had some moments in this game. You even had a situation where you had a trick play in that game for Concord to set up a score. There were key moments in that game, offensively and defensively, that defined the role of this game. Derek Gomez quietly had a nice game for the Concord Minutemen. Didn't get the same level of spotlight that obviously Reese Brevard and Bo Brunner usually do for the Concord Minutemen. But, I mean, I thought Derek Gomez played really well. 9 carries for 166 yards. What a game for the senior tight end, Derek Gomez, who essentially became another running back in this game against Northside. And Gomez really just utilizes athleticism as a tight end and linebacker for the Minutemen. Brevard did what Brevard usually does. 114 yards rushing, 19 carries, 4 TDs for him. Runner, 5 of 8 passing. Didn't throw the ball a lot in this game. Northside did some good things in this game that definitely forced Concord to adjust. was not his typical bro runner performance, but he made the plays when he needed to. And being the senior he is, he let the running backs do their job in this game. And this was the Reese Brevard, Derek Gomez show offensively in this game. The athletes of Concord did their job against the Northside Legends. And they knew they were going to have some trouble with Northside. They already knew that. Reese Brevard also great game defense with 11 tackles, 1 TFL for him. Gomez with 13 tackles. Just a well-played football game for the Concord Minutemen. I mean, Northside, they did their best. I mean, they did their best trying to get their first sectional since 1990. Jaden Rivers in his final game, 28-30 passing, 285 yards. He had a completion percentage of 93.3. That's an A- on a test. That rarely ever happens in a postseason game to have a 93% completion. And Jaden Rivers played probably his best game as a Northside Legend in the game against Concord. And disappointing that it came in a loss, but still a great performance from him. Keeneling, 16 carries, 201 yards, and a touchdown. Rivers, 17 carries for 145 yards and 2 TDs. Keeneling will be back next year as a senior. It will be interesting to see how Northside replaces Jaden Rivers at quarterback, because that is going to be a tough one to replace for Northside, offensively speaking. They do return quite a few guys back in the weapons area, so they'll have weapons back once again. And Keeneling, 120 yards receiving on 8 catches. So he was involved in the passing game. But it's going to be interesting to see how Northside can fill that quarterback position, because they're going to miss Jaden Rivers dearly next year. Also, one other thing to mention here, 10 tackles for the junior. Literally, his name is Junior Landers. Strong game from him. 9 tackles for the junior defensive end. I'm forgetting his name, but his last name is Woodson. I apologize for forgetting his first name. Just kind of blanking right now as we're speaking here, but just overall, just a great season for the Northside Legends. Now we get to the game for Concord against Lafayette Jeff at Elkhart. Lafayette Jeff, the Bronchos, they are also 10-1, averaging 49 points per game, giving up just 12.9. They haven't been tested much this year. I mean, they lost to Chittard, and they lost by 7 points to them. Chittard's one of the best football schools in the entire state. So anytime you beat Chittard, the winningest football program of all time in IHSA football, you're doing something right at Lafayette Jeff. They've had some decent games. Harrison's a good team. Michigan City's had some moments in the past. Kokomo, once upon a time, they were solid teams a few years ago, although they're down right now. Although Lafayette Jeff hasn't been tested a lot in the playoffs. I mean, they played McCutcheon. McCutcheon's decent, not great. And they played Kokomo, who's a shell of what they were a few years ago. So Jeff really hasn't been tested yet. This is definitely going to be their first true test yet for Lafayette Jeff facing Concord on the road. You look at that game against Kokomo, 57-0 for Lafayette Jeff. They took care of business early against Kokomo. They scored all but 6 of their points in the first half against Kokomo. And you look at the Bronchos, they got a junior quarterback in Tristan Barrett, 9-14 passing, 150 yards, 2 TDs for him. Rushing-wise, I should say, pretty balanced rush attack, although they do rely a little bit on their sophomore, Durante Harris, for Jeff, 11 carries, 72 yards, and a TD. They do have a pretty decent group of wide receivers. The one they went to the most in that game, at least for immediate offense, was their sophomore in Jamel Thomas, 2 catches for 67 yards and a TD. But it was spread evenly across the board for Lafayette Jeff. So this could be a nice ball game of 2 teams that can throw the football. And I think that's going to lead to some exciting football on Friday night at Rice Field in Elkhart on Friday nights. You look at some guys that could be a difference maker defensively. Kavion Campbell Walker for Jeff. He had 11 tackles against Kokomo. Solid player at the up front. He's also has a defensive back. Again, with Jeff, they don't have anything that's incredibly special defensively. They don't have those guys that are like super elite players, but they're just a well-run, well-athletic Lafayette Jeff team. And then obviously they can get to the quarterback a little bit. They had 3 picks in this game, 2 of which came from their senior in Cam Bennett of Lafayette Jeff. It's a pretty senior-heavy defense. So there's a lot of experience on this Jeff team. And this is the team with Lafayette Jeff. High-octane offense, experienced defense as well. They're playing their first regional in, this is their second straight regional appearance. It's the first time they've repeated sectional champions since 1982, so before the current format took place. So good to see Jeff back in the regionals once again, trying to win their first ever regional championship. They're going to have a chance against Concord at Elkhart It's not at Concord. It's at Elkhart in Rice Field. Jeff, Concord, I think it's a coin toss game. We'll see what happens, but this should be a fun game. But I got to imagine, I don't underestimate Craig Taylor's Miniman. They all season long, they have built the storyline of Concord being the Road Warriors and being this team of destiny, sort of a team of destiny. Maybe this is their year Concord can run to the state finals, similar to what Warsaw did a year ago. Keep in mind, if Concord wins this game, they're going to be on the road no matter what. They'll either go to Merrillville, which they were in semi-state just last year, or they would play Michigan City at Michigan City. And given the fact it's the region, who knows? Who knows who Concord would place? My money is Merrillville, and Merrillville's been in semi-state quite a few times. So should be an interesting match. It should be interesting to see what comes out of 5A North, because I think you look at that and say, Concord, yes, they'll be in the mix for sure. Jeff's got a chance to win their first ever regional, and whenever you get that first ever championship, you just never know, right? And then Merrillville's has been knocking on the door several times. Merrillville's got the athletes. They clearly have the weapons to make a run. And trust me, Cody Parkhouse will tell you, Merrillville always thinks Merrillville has a chance. So there's going to be a chance for Merrillville, and then Michigan City, nice program as well. So I think 5A North has set themselves up to be a very interesting 5A North. You look at, and obviously 5A South's going to be another tricky one. Obviously, most people would think New Pal's got a shot here, but remember, New Pal's in 5A this time, so the competition is a little bit tougher for New Pal. They just squeaked away a win against Indy Cathedral last week. They're going to be, they got, let's see, I think they're facing East Central. Is it East Central? Yeah, so facing East Central this week. And that's not an easy task whatsoever, playing against East Central and then Floyd Central, moving stuff. All great programs. 5A is just loaded with talent. Such a great class tournament this year. And then lastly, we look at 6A with the Carroll Chargers. Once again, the Carroll Chargers are back in regionals once again. Do you remember when Carroll started the season 1-3 and it was their worst start in 20 years? And people were panicking when they lost to Dwayne in the sets. Oh no, Carroll's down this year. Oh no, the poor Carroll's down. What can we do? They win 7 in a row. They win 7 straight. It's still Carroll once again. I mean, golly, they just keep winning every year. I mean, it's baseball, it's softball, it's volleyball, it's cross country, it's soccer, it's tennis, it's gymnastics, it's cheerleading. They win everything, it seems. Almost everything. And Carroll just won a volleyball state championship. Basketball, not quite to the level of the other sports right now, but still pretty decent. Carroll this team continues to find ways to play their best football in the playoffs. It's their first time repeating as sectional champions since the last time they won regionals, 2022. However, Carroll's going to be tested this week at Penn. Good old Penn, one of the most successful large school programs in IHSA history. The Penn Kingsmen. They have been the crown jewel of the South Bend area. And so you have Carroll. They've kind of been the big bad Carroll Chargers in Northeast Indiana. But here comes Penn, the program that everybody knows in the state is one of the premier programs in all of Indiana for football. And Carroll's got to go into the crown jewel of South Bend, and that is Penn. Or at least I think it is. I mean, there's going to be an argument to be made there with Mishawaka there, but Penn's won so much. It's hard not to put Penn in that high level of elite programs. I mean, Carroll, nice game for them. I mean, Northrop did some good things against Carroll. I mean, David Callison did pretty well in this last game. 24-36 passing for 378 yards, 3 TDs. He did have a pick, though, for Callison. Wade Guilford's last game, 12 catches, 184 yards, 2 TDs. He's off to Ohio State next year, so we will be seeing Quade Guilford mostly on Fox, I would say, in some shape or form over the coming years ahead for the Ohio State Buckeyes, presumably. And Northup, nice year. Nice Cinderella year for the Bruins. But obviously Carroll was certainly the better team, and not only in the regular season matchup, but also in the sectional championship game. Freisinger, 7-12 passing, 130 yards, 2 TDs, but he had 16 carries for 104 yards and 3 TDs. The run game was working for Carroll last week, 100%. You got a junior in Asher Wagner, 15 carries, 134 yards, and a TD of his own. And then 20 carries for 97 yards for the sophomore, Jackson Rhodes. It'll be a name to watch next year for Carroll, I think. But Freiser's only a junior. Wagner's only a junior. Rhodes is only a sophomore. We're going to see these guys back next year, so Carroll's not going to lose too much. And then you got the junior wide receiver in Harrison Sheely. 5 catches, 86 yards, and a touchdown for him. Nice player for Carroll. And then defensively, 7 tackles for the junior inside linebacker, Coleman Tipton. You had 8 tackles from the junior free safety, Lincoln Grabner. For Carroll, you got 9 from the junior. Eli Newhouser quietly having a fantastic year for the Carroll Chargers up front as a middle linebacker. And then 3 sacks all together from Brubaker, Roars, and on the aforementioned Newhouser. 2 pits. It's very much a Carroll victory right there in the truest form. Penn will be a tall task for them. And that is a tall task for Carroll. I believe the last time they won regionals, I believe they also went to Penn, if I remember right. I'm sorry. They did play Penn, but it was in sectionals. I take that back. I forgot they were in the same sectional at one point. So kind of weird how things have kind of changed in recent years. But Penn is now a regional opponent, not a sectional opponent. But they were Lafayette Jeff in the last time they won the regional on the way to state finals. Jeff's now in 5A. So this should be an interesting matchup. Penn's undefeated. 11-0 on the season, one of the great seasons in Penn history. It feels like people said that too many times. Penn 11-0, 42 points per game. They have only 10 points. They are coming off a thrilling 28-24 win against Crown Point, a team that they lost in a heartbreaker. And I mean an absolute heartbreaker just 2 years ago in regionals, 34-33. Crown Point won that game on their way to the state finals just 2 years ago. They got destroyed by Crown Point last year, 35-0. They were sectional opponents, right? And they were once again sectional opponents. This time Penn victorious 28-24. Crown Point's been a really good program in the region over the last handful of years. Penn 28-24 winner, went down to the wire. Pure classic sectional championship football game won by the Penn Kingsmen. And this program, I mean, when you know about Penn, they're going to have a really good spread offense. They got some studs at Penn. I mean, that's pretty obvious. Whenever you are in that Notre Dame territory and you are winning at the level that they do, everybody knows about Penn. They always have really good quarterbacks. They always got athletes everywhere. And one name I just want to mention here, because I don't cover Penn, so I don't know them as much as other teams in my area, of course. But obviously, Vinny Freeman's one name that stuck out to me as a senior strong safety for Penn. You got Brody Cashin, the senior quarterback for Penn. They got some amazing weapons. Vinny Freeman, obviously the son of the current Notre Dame head football coach, Marcus Freeman, right? So you know that the Penn Kingsmen are going to have the athletes. They're going to have the weapons. They're explosive. Both ends of the field, highly explosive team. This is going to be a good matchup for Carroll. I think this is going to be a good ball game between these two teams. But I think the big question for Carroll is going to be, can Carroll's offense be able to diversify, get some drives, sustain drives, get to the red zone, convert on the red zone opportunities, and more importantly, can they slow down the explosive athletes at Penn? Because I'm going to be honest with you, Carroll cannot get into a shootout with Penn. This Penn team's got weapons galore. If it gets to a shootout, I don't like their chances at all. It's going to have to be a gritty, tough defensive game. They're going to have to tackle well Friday night against the Penn Kingsmen, because otherwise, I think Penn is going to have some weapons that are going to cause some trouble that Carroll has not really seen in a while. And so you got to hope that maybe some of those challenges from weeks 1 through 4 are going to pay itself for this game here, because it's probably going to be a tough game for both sides, really, especially the defensive side for both Carroll and Penn. Offense, I think, is going to come a little bit more at a premium in this game. I think we could see a shootout in this one. Although Penn, I think, will be favored in this game. They definitely have the weapons to create some problems for Carroll this week. I don't like the fact that Carroll got to go to Penn for this one. They always win at home, it seems, and golly, Penn's just such a great program. If Carroll does beat Penn, and we do hope that for our sakes, but if they do beat Penn, and I think some would be surprised if they do, but if they do beat Penn, they would be hosting no matter what. So they would either host Westfield or they would host Fisher. So the road doesn't get easy for Carroll, because you're going to get a tough team no matter what happens. So the road doesn't get easy from here for Carroll. Sectionals, you knew they had a chance, but once you get to regionals and you get to semi-state, Sensei really becomes a bear for Carroll by this point. And so we'll see what Carroll can do against Penn on the road against the Kingsmen. If they can pull it out, they'll have a tough game at home against either Westfield or Fishers. Maybe you got to hope some Mother Nature can play a role in helping Carroll here, because like they did in 2022 when the snow came down and it was a low-scoring contest against Hamilton Southeastern, and pretty sure that was a 7-0 game, I think it was. 2022, it was 21-15 against Hamilton Southeastern in a cold, snowy semi-state Friday. So we'll see. Hoping the best for Carroll as we look to see our area teams make it once again to another weekend of football, as we're right about the halfway mark of the football state tournaments. And before you know it, Thanksgiving will be here before you know it. And hopefully we'll have at least one team get to the state finals. Maybe it's Adams Central. Maybe it's Eastbrook. Maybe it's South Adams. Maybe it's Concord. Maybe it's Bishop Wanger. Who knows? But I think or even Bishop Luers will have a chance too. I think we're going to have a great Friday of football coming up, no matter what happens across the board, I think. So that's going to do it. I turn my interview with the head football coach of the Angola Hornets, Andy Thomas. And until next time, I say so long. Joining me is the head football coach of the Angola Hornets, the longtime head football coach of the Angola Hornets, Andy Thomas, as his team is heading to regionals for the first time since winning those two straight sectional titles back in 2017 and 2018. Two special teams in Angola history. Coach, before we talk about this Angola team, I do want you to briefly introduce yourself. You do have a nice long career path that's gotten you to Angola, particularly starting off as you graduated from Mishawaka High School. You've had runs in Garrett, you have runs in all over Northern Indiana before coming to Angola. So just kind of briefly to talk about your career up to this point.
Well, you're right. I'm from Mishawaka, and I went to Manchester, and went to Warsaw High School as my first job, and then I was an assistant coach at Garrett, and then became the head coach at Garrett when the head coach Scott May left to go to Hamilton Southeastern, and then I was at Garrett for 6 years, and then at Culver Community for 8 years, and then now at Angola for 12 years.
Yeah, and in this Angola team, you came in with a team that was kind of in a little bit of a rebuild at that time, but you got this team going in the right direction. You've won now 3 sectional championships since taking over 2014. We'll talk about the regional game at our moment, but I just want to take you to going into this season. You had a couple of ups and downs along the way and whatnots, and you've had a tough schedule. Let's put it lightly. Let's put it this way, Coach. You had a tough regular season, tough division as you always do in the NECC, and you came into the sectional with a hard draw, playing Tippy Valley in the first round of Angola, and then afterwards you'd have to play West Snowball in the semifinals, and then whatever happens in the finals happened there. What was the mindset going into the sectional tournament, knowing what the draw looked like from there?
Well, we just try to keep convincing our kids that we had a good football team, and that we could be a good team, and that we could win a championship, believe it or not. But you can't win a championship if you don't win the first one. You can't win the first one if you don't have a great Monday, Tuesday, et cetera. So we try to just take a one day at a time mindset. It's hard. Confidence is a great elixir. It can overcome a lot of things. And when you're coming off of a 4-5 season, and you had a lot of ups and downs, and had some really tough situations where we lost some games that just tear your heart out. And then they had a tough loss at the end with Andrea, and they're a great team. So just tried to get our kids to believe and to be confident in themselves, and try to kind of refocus on all the reasons that we thought why they can win a championship and they can be successful.
Yeah, and obviously the confidence showed throughout the course of the season, playing some tough games and knowing the talent you had, you were capable of potentially winning this sectional, wide open sectional no less. But the last 2 weeks, Coach, I know you, Andy, for quite a while, so I know you didn't expect to come back from two score deficits late in the game against both West Snowball and Garrett and whatnot, and those are always going to be tough to come back from. Obviously, West Snowball, we know what they are with that pistol offense they run with Schistler and the Yates kids and whatnot. That was a tough comeback to win, to come out of that West Snowball. And then you have the Garrett game, and Coach, you've seen it from both sides how big this rivalry is over the years 60-some years of this rivalry between Angola and Garrett. You're down 2 scores late in the fourth quarter, and Garrett had multiple chances to put this away and whatnot. This was one of those. We look back to this game last week. One of the most improbable endings, at least it looked like that in IHSA history with the way things played out. Coach, did you ever felt like this game? Did you ever felt any sense of doubt in this game, or what was the mindset going into the last 2 minutes of the game, knowing what was at stake here in the championship game against Garrett, and knowing you need a score to at least cut it to 7, or at least tie the game at least, and then you have to get some type of luck going in your favor there?
Well, there wasn't any doubt in so much as that you were just trying to run the game. You're always thinking about the next scenario and what's next and what has to happen. They scored and made it 28-14. We made it 21-14, and then they made it 28-14 with 7 minutes to go. And then we just talked to our guys and talked about we were going to have to be in a 2-minute scenario. We were going to go fast to make sure that we had enough possessions. We couldn't take time. So we went into a 2-minute drill. It's something that we practice every Thursday. We go through all the scenarios that could happen and the way we want to start them and how we should operate. And we had 2-minute drill, and we weren't at that time throwing it every play, but starting it the way we usually like to start it, and then running the plays we like, run and pass at that time. And then we're able to get a score and made it 28-21. And then it did look dire there as they were running the ball and moving it. And we had to use all of our timeouts. But then the planets aligned and we got the ball back. We forced a fumble. And so we talked about in the huddle that we're at the point now we got to get it out. And that doesn't happen usually to be able to get the ball out. We did. And then we went right into 2-minute again and scored all passes at that point. And we didn't get the 2-point conversion. We had a play that we liked. Actually, we had a different play called. Garrett called timeout after we got in our formation. And then so we called another play that we ran against Lakeland earlier in the year. That's real good. It kind of get people in the way, a rub type of play, but they were all over it. And then we knew we had an onside kick, and really, until they would have gotten the onside kick and taken the knee, we're still in game mode. So, sure, it was improbable, certainly not impossible. Our kids kept believing. There's about 7 or 8 scenarios that happen in that last 5 or 6 or 2 minutes that coaches and teams practice all the time. Year-round, season to season, on Thursday nights or different times, and they all kind of happened at once for us. We executed a kick, and Tyler Rupel made a great throw. We had great protection. Brady Ravis made a great throw. Tyler Rupel made a great catch, and we got down there and were able to kick a field goal and win the game. So that wouldn't really. Didn't really allow myself to go there as far as saying goodbye to the team or thinking anything else. We were just trying to run the game and manage the game and do all the things to try to give us a chance.
And like you said, that was great. The score that potentially tied the game, which didn't happen in that way, was a great throw right to Hassman. Got a nice block from Dallas Davis, who quietly had a nice game of his own. Had a nice block to allow Hassman to run in for the touchdown and to potentially go for the 2-point conversion to try to tie the game or win the game at that time. And then obviously Garrett stopped the 2-point conversion. And then you had the onside kid. The way it was the formation onside kid kind of threw everyone off guard. And I believe it was Dallas Davidson that recovered the onside kick. And,
yes.
And obviously the rest was history with just under 40 seconds left in the game. And then Ravens made that great throw to Rupel. Unbelievable catch on double coverage. And then Hawk Hassman being – Hawk Hassman, we know what he is over the course of his 4 years at Angola, makes a clutch play with a 20-yard field goal to win the game. And Andy, talk about what this senior class has brought to Angola. Ravis is part of that senior class as well. What does this senior class bring to the Angola Hornets, and specifically even with Hawk Hassman? What does Hawk Hassman bring that helps exemplify what Angola football wants to be under your leadership?
Well, I'm a little biased in regards to this senior class. My son's a part of it, and I've been coaching most of them since they were little tykes in fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, and even some a few before that, and even some of the juniors that I've coached for a long time. So known these guys a long time, and just know that they're really good people. They're good teammates. We don't have negativity on our team. We don't have drama. We just have guys that want to be good teammates and want to do everything they can to win. And guys that have come a long way in all regards, weight room, character, how they've grown as people. So very, very proud of them. Good leaders, good people, team first guys. And tickled pink at guys that we got like Tyler Ruppel. Him and his family moved in. His brother Cody going to be a really good player as well. Brady Ravis and Carson. So just a lot of positives in our senior class. Really, really good players and guys that led by example. And Hawk Hasselman has been our best football player for the last 2 years. He's a really good player as a sophomore also before he broke his collarbone in a game against Lakeland. He's just a tremendous player, can do it all, run, catch, even throw a little bit through a touchdown pass the other night to Alex. But he's a great player, and not only is he a great player, but he has found another gear in the playoffs. He's always had it. He's always in the high motor guy, but he is really running hot here in the playoffs. He's getting the ball and he's at full speed, and you can really tell he's trying to keep this thing going as much as he can.
He seems to shine in the spotlight these days, and especially with Hawk Hasselman in the senior class, and then Alex Thomas. You mentioned your son, really good tight end and linebacker for the Angola Hornets, 6'4" kid, really just tough kid to tackle and whatnot. So it's a really talented senior class. I think they've always had potential, but I think we're finally seeing what this team can bring, and they showcase their potential, which makes this playoff run very unique and interesting with the history of Angola football. A lot of great moments over the course of Angola's history, dating back to 1959. So which sets up the regional game coming up on Friday. You're going to Knott's, long bus ride out west to Knott's in a different time zone, and Knott's is you know this, and you've been paying attention to what's going on with Knott's. There's a lot of hype going on with Knott's right now under Russ Radke, 50-year coaching career for Russ Radke and the Knott's Redskins, and you got this kid named Miles McLaughlin who became the state's all-time leader rushing. They run that kind of a double wing option attack, if you would, with the Knott's Redskins. They're just really hard to tackle with the Knott's Redskins. No matter what type of competition they bring, they are just so hard to stop the run, and Miles is no exception to that. So you look at the matchup with Knott's, you know the hype is there, so you expect to come in once again as underdogs, whatnot. What's the mentality going into that game against Knott's, knowing that there's a lot of storylines going into this game? What's the expectation you're bringing to your kids to put your team in as good a position as possible going into Friday night?
Well, it's the same that it's been all year long. We're trying to win the day. Yesterday, Monday, we tried to have the best Monday that we could have. Today, out in the snow, we try to have the best Tuesday we could possibly have. We talk about trying to win the battle before you fight the battle, an old cliche from the art of war, but it's so true. Just try to stack days and put good days together, and try to prepare, and not just in practice, but through film study and through our scouting report. Just do everything we can to put ourselves in the best position to identify what they're doing and to try to get as many people to the point of attack as we can. Had a good film session with our defensive guys, stayed after the practice Monday night, just to try to identify and see what was going on. And again, put ourselves in the best position. But we're just trying to be as good as we can be, practice to our full potential every day, and treat practice as an event. We have to have the absolute best Wednesday we can tomorrow. We have to have great energy and enthusiasm, and still have fun. But we got to put our heart and soul into every day to be able to give us a chance to put ourselves in position to win on Friday.
Yeah, and that's for 100%. You want to make sure you're just putting in the stack of days and putting in your best position possible each and every day leading up to Friday night. I just want you to briefly just kind of talk a little bit about your Whatnots with Miles McLaughlin, but can you speak a little bit about what Knots does beyond the Miles McLaughlin components?
Well, they're massive. They have big kids on both sides of the ball. They have a bunch of good football players, just solid, tough kids. They run the foot-to-foot single wing with multiple pullers on every play type of offense. Snap the ball to him. It's really hard to stop. You got to try to celebrate successes. Celebrate when you hold them to a few yards. But you try to not. You don't want to let 8 yards become 60. We got to get people to the ball. Got to get off blocks and get people over the top to the point of attack. And then defensively, they're a 4-3-4-2 team. Mix in some. They have cover one, but mix in some other principles as well to try to outnumber you in the secondary. But the biggest thing is they just got a lot of big, strong, tough kids that you can tell, and they're good at football. They've been winning games for 4 straight years now with this kid. So they expect to win, and they have confidence, and they're on their home field. So they're just a solid football team all the way around.
And definitely a team that definitely we will be watching on Friday night is Knots trying to make it, the undefeated going into Friday night, trying to make a run to stay on paper at least, but we know you have to play the games first and whatnot. McLaughlin also chasing history. That's what everybody knows, chasing the national rushing record. At least that's what everybody's been talking about days. But I guess my last question goes back to you, Coach. You have a long coaching career over the course of your entire time, whether it's Angola or Gare, anywhere else in between. Can you think of any other places that still resonate to you this day? I know this playoff run is going to be somewhere in the back of your mind someday, but what are some other memories that you still have throughout the course of your time? It don't have to be just playoffs. It can be just any memory in general in your coaching career.
Well, there are just so many. You remember that just being with the guys, hanging out with the coaches and the players and the relationships. That's the biggest thing. For sure. Winning championships. We kind of talked about it last week. The old Bill Parcells saying there's kind of a blood kinship when you're able to win a championship with a group, like a blood transference. The guys that and we still stay in contact with our guys all the time, but maybe even more so with guys that you've been through that, been through all the things that it takes, and they had to come to fruition and win a championship. Those are great memories. Had him at Garrett, Culver, and here, and met a lot of great people along the way, and really just been fortunate. Wouldn't change a thing about it, even, and we had some tough times for sure, but they all been for a reason and all been worth it, and really wouldn't change anything. But great wife and family to support the whole thing. And couldn't do it without them as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always remember those Angola teams from 2017, 2018. The kid from Eric Cockcroft in 2017 against Culver Academies to win that sectional, and then you had 2018 against Northwood, the improbable game against Northwood, or at least on paper it was, with all that, with the mud and the rain and against Northwood. Always fun memories and whatnot. And those
I tell you, the last
when they won those 2 sectional championships. Always great memories for Angola Hornets, a tight community. Then Angola, great tradition when it comes to the Hornets and whatnot. Coach, any final thoughts before we let you go here to get you ready for regionals against Knots?
The last 2 weeks have been very eerily similar to the 2017 winning in round 2 at Northwood and round 3 at Culver Academy. Very, very similar. A lot of similarities in both games.
Yeah, definitely a lot of similarities as well. A lot of great memories as we know, of course, your time here in Angola and whatnot. And so we looking to make you the rest of the way as you look to extend your season on Friday when you take on the Knots Redskins.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.